Okay, so you know that I'm reading this book alongside with you, right? I did not know the content of the book itself. Of course, I knew let's say, the content of the discipline, the course, but I was not familiar with the book. I chose the book because this was the book that Professor Guilherme was using there with his students in the United States. And then last week, when I was checking chapter 8 again, and I thought, well, we're going to talk about the business of information technology. And I started thinking, what will I find in this chapter? Who owns the business of IT? Is this a business of the companies that do the regular business? Or is this the business of the big techs and some other technology companies that package technology in a way that they can sell it to other people in the market? So I was really curious to know what the authors were going to say about what the business of information technology really was, and who was, let's say, who gained, and who were the let's say the ones that made a profit out of the information technology business. I don't know if you have already read. I'm sure that I've already mentioned this paper before in one of our previous classes. A paper by a journalist called Nicholas Carr, and he wrote in 2004, I believe, IT doesn't matter, right? Basically saying that information technology is not the driver to profitability. So if I were thinking with Nicholas Carr's ideas in my mind, I would say, well, the business of IT, the business of information technology, is definitely not the business of a carpenter who or any company that, let's say, produces furniture, right? Their business is, making furniture to have in people's homes. Their business is not IT. But then you go there and you check what companies like, for example, a furniture company. Where do they spend their money, and what is driving the costs of their operation? I would suspect that there is a lot of money that goes also into IT. So it's not that their money is going only on in purchasing machinery to, let's say, to saw pieces of wood or to screwdrivers, electric screwdrivers or whatever. There's also information technology involved. I'm thinking about furniture because, and you may even hear tonight, I have two carpenters working on some furniture here in the other room. So if you hear any noise of saws or people hammering, it's them late in the evening. But we're lucky because we are the only people living in this apartment building right now. It's 14 stories, but no one else in the building. So we said, yes, you can hammer as much as you want. Try not to hammer during my class. So they're probably going to be quieter, but they will still be working. And I know that this guy's business has been also transformed by technology. Maybe not theirs directly because they're just the assemblers. But this morning when we got the furniture, when the furniture arrived here, it was hundreds of pieces of wood and some instructions that I swear were probably as big as, well, I have here chapters 8 to 12, I think, here in this. Let's say the instructions that they had to assemble the furniture in my place was this thick. There was a lot of instructions. And then I asked, well, where does this come from? And they said, well, this is, of course, the architect draws does all the project for the furniture. And then they send it to a company in Rio Grande do Sul. They cut all the pieces there. They assemble them, all pieces together. Then they put it in a truck together with the furniture of maybe some 10 other people, send it to an operation center in a big truck. And then that big truck, the load of that big truck is split into 10 smaller trucks to bring to each one's customer's place. So see how much technology they have, information technology they have to have there to make sure that my furniture arrives at my place at the day that they agreed with me, following all that had been agreed in terms of costs and timing and everything. There's a lot of information in this business that in the past wasn't necessary. In the past, it was probably just the carpenter or and the customer, and then the carpenter would go there, buy some wood. He would bring that wood, cut it into pieces maybe in his own, let's say, office, but this has become a very sophisticated business. When they arrived here to bring, let's say, these pieces of wood that will turn into my furniture, I asked the guy, so it probably took a few more days for this to arrive, because you probably only bring a truck a day from Rio Grande do Sul up to here. And then he said, no, we send a big truck every day. And in each one of those big trucks, there's the furniture for maybe 10, 15 apartments. So this company that is, let's say, is cutting the furniture into the right pieces and writing booklets telling how to assemble those and providing those to people that will assemble it in different places of the country. They need a lot of information. So their business has definitely changed because of information technology. And I would say probably the business of those who are not in the market any longer because they kept doing things the same way as they did in the past is also affected, right? But just that they had to change jobs, change whatever they did, because they couldn't compete in this market any longer. So, who's the owner of the information technology business? Nicholas Carr would say that we should all buy technology just as infrastructure. We should have the same technology as everyone else. Preferably, we should only buy what has already been standardized, so that we benefit from the fact that it's easy to connect with others that have the same technology. Sometimes there are our customers, sometimes there are our suppliers, but it's good to be able to connect. And in order to connect, it's much easier if we use standardized technology. But there are many situations in which even regular standard businesses are transformed by technology in a way that you cannot just wait until something becomes infrastructure, because sometimes other competitors will be able to benefit from their proprietary innovation in a way that you are out of the market. So we can agree to some extent with Nicholas Carr saying that, yes, when we're thinking about technology that will not help us become the best players in the markets, in those cases, we should most probably decide on infrastructural technology. We should probably just buy the same as everyone else is buying and making sure that we're not left behind because we don't use that technology. On the other hand, when we believe that technology may make the difference, in those cases, we probably have to risk more and decide on using that technology in different ways to what others are doing, because that we believe will provide us with a competitive advantage, right? So I was expecting to have a little bit of this discussion in this chapter. I don't think I saw much of that. Of course, we see here when they're talking about maturity levels, that I also expected that to be here, right? The maturity levels of the relationship between the IT function or the IT department and the business functions or business departments, business areas of an organization, right? Who's in charge of the IT business? Someone could say it's definitely the IT department or the IT function. But if it's only the IT department or the IT function that is concerned with the IT business, there's very little chance that technology is going to be used to improve the business and improve the business in a, let's say, in a strategic way. We will only get improvements in the business that refer to efficiency, to improving the process, because when IT is not strongly involved with the business, the IT people, in which ways can they help? They can try and understand the business of the company, and then they can if there's any business people that comes to them and makes an order, asks for a specific software to be developed, for example, they can, take that order and provide that business function or department with whatever the business department asked. But notice it's an order-taking relationship. It means no brains at the IT side, right? You don't have to think the business. You just follow instructions, do whatever you are asked, and do that in a way that you will help the company become more efficient, because technology tends to provide us with, let's say, better processes. But that's just the most basic level of relationship between IT and the business, that one in which IT just waits for someone from the business side to provoke, to ask for something, and the information technology department acts passively, simply responding to it. The author here claims that there are other possibilities that involve IT more closely, but at the same time that require that the IT personnel are better acquainted with the business of the organization. For example, when IT people already understand the business, they can become a little less passive, and they can start offering ideas and saying, what about if we use this technology to improve that specific process? Right? They start provoking the other functions and saying, I do believe that we have technology that can do whatever we already do better than we did in the past. Right? This is what they call here in this chapter a second level of maturity. In fact, I don't recall exactly the name that they give to this second level. It's on page 181. Let me show you that. Let me see. I believe it's in the second or third page here that they show it. Over here. So they say that the level 1 is a level, and we're talking about maturity level, or the maturity level of the relationship between business and IT, right? So that first more basic level is just what they call here business efficiency. IT performs as an order taker, as I said, in a very passive, or here they call it in a very reactive way. Okay? When IT starts to understand the business a little better, it can turn itself into what the authors here call a solution provider. So in this level 2, notice that level 1, they claim that IT only works on the business efficiency, really focus on the process and improving the process. The second level here, they call already business effectiveness. I particularly don't like very much the idea of effectiveness here, because I still think that IT in the second level is still focusing on efficiency, on doing something better. The main difference is that IT here becomes active because it proposes the ways in which that efficiency can be reached, right? But they call it effectiveness. I don't like the word effectiveness here, because I tend to enjoy the differentiation between efficiency and effectiveness, in which we consider that efficiency relates to the process and efficiency relates to improving the way we do something. And I like the word effectiveness being used to improving not the process, but improving the results, or improving the ends that are achieved by a specific process. But my understanding is that what they do here in this level 2, it is still related to efficiency, except that in level 1, IT was reactive, and here IT becomes a little more active. People are getting more confidence that they sort of understand what the business is, and they start proposing things. I think you've all. I think you've all already experienced that situation, that when you're not very comfortable with the situation, you keep quiet. If someone asks your opinion, you give it, right? After you become a little more confident that you know what people are talking about, you start offering them with your opinions, right? I believe that what we have here for these first 2 stages is basically the level of confidence of the IT department or the IT personnel has been raised, and IT became more confident that it understands the current business, but it's still the current business, the business that we do today. And the authors mentioned that we could also get to a situation, what they call here business transformation, and I here agree with them, that there is a situation in which IT has become so knowledgeable about the business that it not only knows how to improve, how to perform the business, but it can also check ways in which the new technological possibilities allow for different businesses than what the company was used to doing. So notice that in this case, the IT people become also very knowledgeable about the business. They become so knowledgeable about the business that they even claim that the business can and should be changed because of the new technological possibilities. See, here, in this case, the IT department or at least the leadership of the IT department is not only active, it's proactive in the sense that it's involved with the roots of the problems, and let's say when we have an IT department that performs at this level 3 here, we definitely do have what this book has been calling a CIO, a Chief Information Officer. That is not only someone that has the technical skills necessary to deal with the technology itself, but also has the business skills and understanding that allow this person to become a good strategist for the business. Right? So when we think of a business model like this one, we have to reflect about whose business it is. IT. Is IT a business for the IT people? Definitely. Is it IT the business for other managers from other areas of the organization? I would say also definitely. They're also concerned. It's also important because it impacts their own performance. So they should also be involved. They should also understand the way technology changes the organization, because they will be directly affected, and they can be affected passively, or they can be affected more actively or proactively, as shown in this maturity model. So this is the reason why this class is so eclectic, in the sense that we have here computer scientists, we have bachelors in information systems, we have business students, because each one of you should look at a maturity model as the one presented here in this figure 8.1 and think, what should be my role here? Right? In which way should I become the owner of this business? In which way should I assume a more active or even proactive behavior when discussing technology in the organization? So let's say this was something that I did expect that we would see in this chapter. I also expected that we started the discussion sort of from where we did start here. In fact, this is where I should have started today. If we look here at the beginning of the chapter, basically the first few paragraphs here, where we have that CIO from Alcoa, this huge aluminum company. I think it's aluminum that they do. They say chemical. And the guy here says the following. He says, well, this is a message that he received from his CEO, or from the president of the organization. We chose you, the CIO, because you were the best of the IT group. And you're doing a great job completing IT projects and managing the IT organization. Basically, what the president of the organization is saying, you're doing a great job here at level 1 of that maturity model that is presented a few pages ahead. But they're saying you're basically what the guys, the CEO is saying is, you're doing the technical things. If we ask you, if you ask you for the solution of a problem, you bring us the technological solution, but you're passive there. You're not helping us think the business based on the possibilities of the technology. So let's see what he says next. But I'm afraid that you don't know, see how strong this is, you don't know the business of your business. I don't know if you think that this is philosophical or not. I thought when I stop here, this morning when I was reading, and I thought, well, this is great. Maybe this is something that we should always ask our computer scientists and our bachelors in information systems. Do you know the business of your business? And they may say, huh? What's that? And I say, well, the business of your business is actually what your company has to do to be successful in business, right? So what the customers buy from your company. Do you know what is the value that the customers experience from dealing with your company? This is basically the business of your business. Of course, this technical IT person would say, well, my business is IT. And then I would say, well, go to the maturity level model, and you will say, yes, if you say that your business is IT, we're going to say you're level 1, in the sense that you can act, let's say, reactively. You may be technically good, but you depend on someone telling you what to do because you're not able to think the business of your business. Okay? The business of, when you say my business is IT, you say, well, the business of your business is what is the company that you work for does with the efforts in IT that you perform. Right? So I thought it to be a very philosophical, let's say, statement here. Do you know the business of your business? In fact, for those of you who were my students in the undergraduate program, many times in the first semester of your undergraduate program or the second semester, I tell you, it's too early to start, with work experience. I prefer that you spend more time studying right now than going to work. But when you start working, maybe a couple of semesters from now, when you're in the 4th or 5th semester of your course, of your program, the first thing that you have to do when you get to a company is to start understanding the value that that company brings to the market. Because after you understand the value proposition of the organization, it will be much easier for you to decide in which ways you're going to implement your efforts in that area that you know the best, that is technology. But let's keep going. Notice the president of the organization sent him this message. It's a four-line message, but we had to be philosophical in the first in the second line. Do you know what the business of your business is? And now we have this compliment here. You haven't thoroughly answered my repeated questions about how much IT costs the business. And I have to admit that also led me to stop for a couple of minutes there and think, and maybe I hope that you also thought about this question. How much IT costs to the business? Is this an answer that you would be able to give about the companies in which you work? For those of you who are working, is it easy for you to know how much IT costs? And if you tell me, well, the enterprise resource planning system costed 25 million reais, I will say this is not the cost, because what the CEO is provoking here, what he's trying to say is, what is the cost related to the value it brings? How much does a Ferrari cost? What is the correct answer for that? Someone may think that the most precise answer is you Google and you will find out that it costs 2.5 million reais, for example. Of course, it depends on what Ferrari I'm talking about, but that is not the, well, first, that's not the cost. First, that's the price. That's what Ferrari is charging you for, right? We only think about costs. Cost only makes sense when we have costs, but we also want to generate value. If not for that, it's just a price tag. That's the price of the Ferrari. For example, if I am a watermelon, let's say if the work that I do is carry watermelons from the farm to the fair in the city, I would say the cost of the Ferrari is probably too much. Not because it costs 2.5 million reais. Maybe I'm the king of watermelon in Brazil, and 2.5 million reais is nothing to me, right? But simply because that Ferrari will not do the job. It will not help me carry those watermelons from the farm to the fair where I want to sell it. Right? So we can only think of the cost of technology, relating it to the value that technology will have for our organization. And of course, different organizations provide customers with different value experiences. If we are the let's say the provider in the market that offers the best, let's say that maybe the best intrinsic quality, I would say we probably need a lot of and what I'm referring to here, intrinsic may even be wrong. When if we are the company that provides the best, the product that is better adjusted to its specification, right? A product that is precisely what is in the, let's say, in the manuals. Do you think that a Rolls Royce, for example, would be a good example? No, Rolls Royces were never submitted to any sort of automation, and we know that automation makes products much more, let's say, compliant to the standard. Right? A Rolls Royce is a car, at least to my understanding. I've already admitted that I'm very bad with cars, so I don't know why I keep giving examples of cars. But Rolls Royce was a company that has always been proud for not automating its process, because it wants to be labor intensive. It wants to be the, let's say, the artisan, the art craftsmanship of its workers that make that jewelry, which they claim Rolls Royce to be. But that means that the soldering in a Rolls Royce is going to be made by a human, not a robot. And then when you say what will provide the best soldering based on the specification, we'll say a robot will do that much better than a human. So therefore, if what we want the customer to have is compliance to the specifications, we want to automate. The technology that we will use is technology that allows us to obtain that, to obtain this perfection in terms of every new item is going to be exactly similar to the previous one if they're produced in a production line with that intent. Or even if each item is different, they're going to be different because we customize dynamically, but still each one of them will be made with an automate precision, not with a human precision. Human precision depends on our moods, depends on how, how nice life has been treating us. It depends on. I remember that when I was a student at UTFPR, after classes, sometimes we left UTFPR at 11 o'clock in the evening and walked to Rua 15 to have a hamburger and drink a beer. And we knew if the guy who fixed that hamburger, if he had a fight with his girlfriend or not, because there were days that the hamburger was great, and there were days that it was horrible. And the main reason for that was his mood, right? There was no other reason. The process had to be the same, but sometimes he was happy and he did things with love, and other times he was, he just didn't want to be there, and everything was bad. If we want consistency, we want some. If what we sell is consistency, our IT people should understand that probably automating is the best way to go. If our the value driver is intimacy with the customer, for example, is developing a close relationship, maybe and we'll still need IT to support that, right? Because even if people will be there in the front and dealing with the customers, they need to be fed with the right information so that people feel that that company cares about them and treats them and basically cares about them and treats them the way that they expect. So we will need systems that provide that make that information available to those people that will be dealing with customers, so that the customers think, well, this is a company that, gee, I bought a car from them. I'm still with my car examples. I bought a car from them 5 years ago. I come here to the same company again. It's impossible that they remember me. But as soon as I give them some detail about myself, the seller already has all the information. You're an old client of ours. You have already bought a car here in the past. I hope that you enjoyed it. And they can start a conversation, but only because they're fed with that information that is only possible because the IT system that is there was prepared, was tuned to provide them with that kind of information that allows the business to be what the business wants to be. That is friendly, that is concerned with the customer, concerned with this idea of showing the customer that they care. So again, what is the business of your business? Have you ever thought of that? What is the business of your business? Because if you understand what the business of your business is, you're going to be able to provide your customers with something more aligned to their interests and therefore more valuable to your company. Okay? And then we keep going here. Furthermore, you cannot communicate with the people running the business in words they understand. Have you ever heard that? I mean, for those of you who are in IT, have you ever heard that kind of complaints that the IT people, they go there and give a talk, they want to show the advantage of using a new technology, but they only talk about things that do not matter to the rest of the world. Right? This appears a little further here in the text. I think this lower part here. Let me see where. This audience, and this audience means the managers of other areas, did not want to hear about the technology. They certainly wanted me to. It's actually the guy telling now what his mistake was. He had given a talk that was based on a lot of technical information, but that was not what people wanted to hear. They certainly wanted me to handle technology issues, right? And they were probably saying, you were hired to be this technology interface. We don't want to concern with the technology. We want you to turn it into something that we deal with without even realizing that we're having to do that. They wanted me to communicate with them in words they understood. And what are the words that they understood? People, time, money, and the possibilities technology created for them in their businesses. So this is why we have to understand the business of our business. They keep going about that, and I also highlight another point here. They say, don't talk about ERP or mobile apps. Talk about what it is going to happen to the business and to the people, time and money when you have the ERP or the mobile apps installed. Right? People want to know what changes will be brought to the business because of technology. One interesting thing is, again related to the beginning here of our chapter, they claim here that the key activities that managers can expect of their IT organization, and probably just as importantly, what the IT organization does not provide them. I've heard this many times, that it is important for us or for those who are involved with IT and who bring IT solutions, that we are able to explain the miracles that our technology is able to perform. But even more importantly than being able to talk about those miracles, it should be to talk about the miracles that the technology is not able to perform. Right? The problem here is, and of course, if you're a vendor, it's difficult to talk about what your technology is not, the problems that your technology is not able to solve, because those basically mean that the customer may give up on you and say, well, if they don't solve this problem, it doesn't interest me. So they're probably so interested in selling the product that they prefer to simply keep you in the illusion that their product is the solution to all the problems you have, even for those problems that you don't even know that you have, but you still think that it's very comforting, let's say, if someone tells us, I have a solution, even when we have still not defined what our problems are. And this happens a lot with technology. In fact, this happens a lot in any situations in which there is someone buying something and someone selling something. Whoever is buying their dreams. Whoever is selling is trying to sell the customer's dreams, even when they know that they will only be able to provide them with the reality of what they're bringing. So it's difficult to find salesmen that are honest enough to put the customer down and say, hey, come on, you're dreaming there. This, we shouldn't be talking about a solution, not at this stage. You haven't even been able to formulate what your problem is, so it's difficult for us to provide you with a solution. I have never seen a seller like that. Sellers always sell us our dream. And they're happy if we dream high, because that makes their sales easier. I said that we're just, we have just bought this apartment here, and it was actually someone sells a dream, we buy something, we buy our dream, and later we figure out that what we bought was an apartment, not a dream, right? But sellers, I mean, the way I bought this apartment here was a little curious. My wife, I'm in Pissarras right now, in Santa Catarina, and my wife and I were here visiting some friends. In fact, we were not even visiting them. We were staying at their apartment here. They were not here with us. They just let us stay at their apartment, and we enjoyed the beach. And we were walking on the beach. This was 5 years ago, and then my wife saw that they had in front of one of these, basically one of the companies that builds these apartments here, and one of these large apartment building contractors, that they had some of those bicycles for rent, those that you can rent with an app in your phone. And then she said, well, let's go inside. They have air conditioning. It's sort of hot outside. You pretend that you're buying an apartment while I use their Wi-Fi to install the app and release 2 bikes for us to ride. The problem is that I'm not a good pretender, and I got there, and the seller was good, and I buy my own dreams, right? So I bought my dream 5 years ago. Now we're here turning the dream into reality. Vendors, IT vendors, I can't say that they sell us dreams. They sell us what they call their solution. I think some of you are IT sellers, right? Some of you are vendors of IT, and think most IT companies have what they call their solution. I think you've probably already heard me saying that it's impossible for someone to have a solution before we define what is the problem that is solved by that solution, right? So a solution without a problem is not a solution. It is, as they would say in English, and I'm more confident saying that in English than in Portuguese, because it's a swear word, bullshit, right? There's no solution before the problem. So again, understanding the business of our businesses means understanding even what our problems are, so that when we need to buy technology or when we need to develop technology, we do that with our both feet on the ground, because we know what our problems are. And it's not someone coming and telling us, don't worry, I have the solution that will make us happy buyers. I'm not complaining about the apartment I bought, right? I'm one of those lucky people that usually what I do, even if I do for the wrong reason, even if I only wanted to ride a bike and was not even able to ride a bike that day because I had to keep writing, signing contracts for the whole afternoon and showing them that even if I didn't have the money, in 5 years' time, I would have the money to pay for whatever I still needed. If we're very, if we know our business well, we don't we don't mess up with our own, let's say, comforting ideas of having someone proposing as a solution. Right? So I tend to tell myself that I already knew that the apartment was a solution for my retiring in a couple of years' time. So, well, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to be here on a Wednesday, right? Of course, I'll have to drive back to Curitiba at 5 o'clock in the morning to teach late in the morning tomorrow. And I'll be there with Nilson and some of the other guys in the afternoon. Oh, but tomorrow our class is going to be online also, right? So, but anyway, I'll be in Curitiba tomorrow. But in 3 years' time or so, I may not have to be in Curitiba most of the time. So I think all of that, when this guy was selling me his solution, I was sort of already ready for that. So what I'm claiming here is that he was a good seller, but at the same time, I was not such a naive buyer as I am let's say, as I'm trying to convince you I was, right? Although my wife said, pretend that you're buying an apartment. Of course, my idea was not to buy the apartment right then, but maybe it would be wiser if I had seen a couple more alternatives before my decision. But again, that has been my way of deciding. I sort of decide fast after I have already given some thought, even if the thought was, should I buy? Should I rent a bike or buy an apartment? Bad example for the way we buy technology, right? We shouldn't say, well, what do I do today? Do I buy the Oracle solution or the Microsoft solution? There's a lot of considerations that have to be taken into account, a lot of impacts of that decision, even in the future. After you have already decided on someone's solution for your problem, you will be tied to that for a long time, because the decision you have already made will define the decisions that you can still make in the future. Whoever has bought an ERP of one of these large vendors in the future can maybe only decide to postpone the upgrade, right? But they will never be able to decide again to change suppliers. It's not after you have an ERP from one company, that means that you have sealed a long-term contract with that company, and it's going to be very difficult and very difficult to get rid of that in the future. All right, so we've already talked about the maturity model. And then one interesting thing is a table that they show, I think. Of course, this we already talked about. This table here. Well, maybe if you cover the maturity level on the right, so it will not work because it starts with level 1 and goes all the way to level 3. And of course, level 1 tends to be those more passive, more situations. Maturity level 1 tends to be those situations in which the business areas order something and the IT department simply say, yes, sir, yes, madam, and they do whatever they ask for. But when we start going down here, we start seeing that let's say the processes that in which IT is getting involved become less simply do what they asked, and more in the second stage here, more like a consulting, and IT already proposes some alternatives and some decisions that are more not basically support to the business. They already become decisions that involve actually making more radical changes to the processes. And then the ones closer to the end here that are more, let's say, maturity level 3, they are we see that IT became a strategic partner of the business units in the organization. For example, anticipating new technologies, and of course, anticipating new technologies that will impact the business. Do you think that this is something that the business managers can do on their own, anticipate technologies? Well, today, I do believe that we can argue that that's possible, right? We do have many users of technologies that are even fancier in the use of technology that they make than those that are involved in developing technologies, right? So I do believe that there are many situations these days in which people that are not, let's say, the experts in technology can anticipate how a specific technology will help transform its own business. But it's still, let's say, it's still easier if we have people in IT that also have a good understanding of the business. I would say that they are probably better fit, because they don't only know the technology as users. They know the back office of the technology itself, and they probably have a better understanding about what could make that technology really impactful in that business or not, if they understand the business. Participating in setting and implementing strategic goals. See, if you are in level 3 of the maturity model, I am sure that your company has what the Americans call a C-suite staff, or someone like the company surely has a CIO or some other chief something officer that deals with technology. And having someone with that kind of title means that that person takes part in the decision making that happens in the organization at a strategic level. It means that when a company is thinking how it's transforming its own business or how it's making its own business more efficient, it is already doing that with the insights of someone who is from the IT area. Elida is asking that if people that are not specialists have a good benchmarking field, I think they could anticipate technology. But notice here, Elida, that if they have good benchmarking, means that they are already comparing to someone. And if they're comparing to someone, they need someone to already be doing that, which means that they're already behind. Right? This my argument is I do think that people that are not specialists in the IT field can still notice that a company is lagging behind and going there to their IT people and saying, look, I saw that our competitor is already doing this. Shouldn't we be doing the same? That's basically what benchmarks do. If we compare to someone else, it means, and we notice that someone else is doing something that we are not doing and that we believe that would be sensible to do, I would say we are already lagging behind. Right? So this is why it is important to have people with this focus on IT, but that can also think and help implement the strategic goals. And finally, they have here in this table integrating the use of social IT. Of course, this edition of the book here, I think it's from 2019 or 2020. I think they were still very well, and I think there's no reason why not to be fascinated by the way social IT can shape the strategies of many organizations, not only organizations that sell directly to the end customer, but any organizations basically can benefit from developing a closer, some sort of closer connection to end customers and a better understanding of their needs and so on and so forth. So this is why they're talking about this here. I have to admit that although these other two topics here would be definitely in my list of things that I expect from a CIO, this here seems more, let's say, maybe in 10 years from now, this is something that will not be there. While these other two possibilities are, let's say, more perennial. Okay. Well, as they have a chapter here, a section on what the IT organization does not do. Right? So some functional managers inadvertently delegate key operation decisions to the IT organization. Why is this a problem? Basically because these guys are ceding control to the IT department of something that they know better. They know better the business than the IT department. But sometimes, again, the IT department, or even when the IT organization is not even another, let's say, another sector or another department in the company, sometimes it's just a third-party provider of IT. But IT comes with these ideas that it has a solution, and that's very seductive. And many times, other managers may say, well, if you have the solution, please implement it for me. They are, in fact, turning over control of their business operations. And the same way as we argue here that IT should not be passive, we shouldn't expect other areas to be passive and allowing IT to become, let's say, overactive in defining things that they know better. Right? So IT professionals should not have the sole responsibility for deciding which business projects receive IT dollars. In fact, probably the IT area should never be the prioritizer of IT-related projects. They maybe consultant. They may be involved in the strategic decision about prioritizing projects, but it should not be left to the IT department or the IT area to decide what projects deserve to be implemented first, considering that the company cannot do all at once, simply because we want the IT department to be more involved. We want them to be more proactive. We want the IT department to be more involved with the business, but we have to admit that their training was not specifically on business, and there will be others that will probably have a better business vision than they do. And also here, sometimes perfection sometimes comes at a price that many businesses leaders may be unwilling to pay. It's very easy for one to decide I want a perfect system, but a perfect system will, although it may be better than a good system, it may not be so much better than the additional cost involved in producing it, if it's possible to produce such a kind of system. That will not, let's say, the differences in cost will not compensate the difference in value. Not every system needs to have gold-plated functionality, and not every system needs to be fortified from every conceivable danger. I mean, we're in living times where everyone talks about security, but it's always, let's say, calculated security. No system is perfect, and sometimes to get closer to perfection in terms of security, we make, as we saw in the previous chapter, in chapter 7, we make the business less attractive. We make customers' life much more difficult, and therefore we have to, let's say, agree with the compromise there. What else we have here? So technology's decisions, sometimes so let me see what we have here. In many organizations, the general manager delegates critical technology decisions to the IT professional alone, as we already said. Many times companies delegate their decisions to vendors that sell them the dream of a perfect solution. And this can lead to technology decisions that might hinder business opportunities. Strategy formulation is a joint process, including business and IT professionals. We don't want to hinder business opportunities because we have taken technology decisions that now make it impossible to move a step back and go in a slightly different direction. Okay. So here, with respect to what we expect from the Chief Information Officer, my question to you guys is, what is the difference between let's say, this Chief Information Officer and an IT function manager, a more traditional IT function manager? What do you think? In your organizations, do you have a Chief Information Officer or do you have an IT department manager? And I know that maybe you're going to say, well, we don't have a Chief Information Officer because in our company, the names of the different, let's say, or the different titles are in Portuguese and Chief Information Officer is in English and we don't have a direct translation, right? But again, what I mean here, and I agree that this is a problem. In Portuguese, I think we do not create a title for the Chief Information Officer. We do have, let's say, an IT manager or an IT director, but simply an IT manager or an IT director could be someone who is still very involved with, let's say, with the technology itself and with implementing technology and in a very passively driven way.
In the company that I work at,
CIO, I think this is a good definition that they have here. The Chief Information Officer is the most senior executive in the enterprise, responsible for technology vision and leadership for designing, developing, implementing, and managing IT initiatives for the enterprise to operate effectively in a constantly changing and intensely competitive marketplace. So this guy has a vision and leadership for the design of technical solutions that implement the business, right? It's not, we have to have this for the definition of a CIO. We always have to talk about the market. There is no chief information officer without a concern with the business itself, not just the technology. Okay? And this has to be the main difference between a CIO, regardless of if we call him or her a CIO, and an IT manager or an IT director. Gabriel is saying that they have a CTO, but the chief technology officer may be, depending on the organization, Gabriel, it may be just a different name for someone who has the same job. A CTO, of course, could be a chief technology officer, could be someone that is, if you work for NASA, for example, maybe the chief technology officer is an aerospace engineer and not an IT engineer, right? So the word technology is broader, but if you work for a company in which when you're talking about technology, you're talking about information technology, I would say that CTO or CIO mean the same, right? But in general, it has to be clear that the chief information officer needs to have this understanding of the business. I think that's, they keep on explaining this when they say here, CIOs are a unique breed. They have a strong understanding of the business and of the technology. So it's a person that has to have this, let's say, dual understanding. CIOs need the technical ability to plan, conceive, build, and implement multiple IT projects on time and within budgets. Okay, this, let's say, a simple IT manager would also need this. But the CIO also needs the ability to realize the benefits and manage the costs and risks associated with IT, to articulate and advocate for a management vision of IT, to encourage digital innovation and business transformation where appropriate. So this second part here, and it keeps going, and to work well with other executives. This is that part that was the complaint about that the CEO had at the beginning with respect to his CIO. You have to communicate well with other executives. So this second part here is just as important as the first one when we think about the, let's say, the tasks or what we expect of a CIO. And they claim here that using the words chief and officer usually implies a strategic focus. So whenever you see, although here in Brazil this is a little strange, because sometimes people just use names in English because they're fancier, right? And so there may be people that are called a CIO, and you're going to see there what they do. They're just a regular IT manager that is very good with the technology, but has no understanding of the business. It should not be the case. I can say it would never be the case in the, let's say, in the international market, in other places where English means more, right? But in general, we would expect that if they have these two words, chief officer there, it's part of those C-suite jobs that relates to strategy, people that are thinking the business and their own specific area. So some organizations that do not see the value of having an IT person on their executive team choose not to use these words. And then my question is, are there companies that they depend on technology, but they still prefer to name their IT, let's say their IT manager, simply IT manager or IT director, but not emphasizing any strategic, let's say, role? Probably yes. If depending on the business, if it's a business that it would be a more traditional business, and a business that does not think that IT could become important to, let's say, to the strategy or become important to transform the organization. It's each time more difficult, right? Because companies are having to digitally transform themselves to keep relevant. So it's becoming more difficult, but there could be, right? And then they talk here about those many different acronyms that can be used, and notice that the CTO here that they mentioned is Chief Telecommunications Officer, not the same Chief Technology Officer that Gabriel was talking about, but there's another. There's the Chief Technology Officer here, or CTO. So sometimes three letters sometimes are difficult even to make a distinction between the different possibilities there. I remember that a huge discussion on if companies should have a CIO or, for example, or it's not one and the other, or a Chief Digital Officer, for example. And I would say that there may be companies for which the data are so important, and probably companies that generate so much data that they think that it's very important to have a chief data, even a chief data officer, right? Or a chief, and I would say that nowadays where data science has become so important also, I do understand that. But at the same time, I think that, let's say, a chief information officer let's say a chief data officer would probably, in a very large company that has room for someone to be more specific, I'd say that the chief data officer could be someone under the umbrella of the chief information officer still, because we need data to turn it into information, and then we need information to have knowledge. So maybe, but these other acronyms here are not as usual and not as, I think, important to us. Let me see here. I think I'm a little. Mm-hmm. This is interesting here where they talk about the importance of building a business case to, let's say, to advertise the needs of IT. And here they claim that if we have a good business case, we may convince more easily those who actually take the decisions. So there's going to be someone who takes the go-ahead decision, and in general, the one that takes the go-ahead decision is the CEO, right? Or sometimes a board of directors. But notice that this go-ahead decision is sort of a prioritizing decision, right? When the go-ahead is you either, when you say go ahead with this project, you're saying, yes, this is the right time for this project. It's comparing to other projects that are also interesting and that we have been analyzing here. This seems to be the one that is more convenient for whatever reason. So prioritizing means that we never have all the resources available in the world to make sure we go ahead with all the good projects that are presented to us. And then we have to decide on those that, for whatever reason, seemed more reasonable for the time being. And building this business case of creating let's say, the narrative that will convince those that take the decision may be an important step for the CIO. And therefore, the CIO has to understand which buttons to push. I mean here, what are the important things to be presented in this business case, so that the other C-suite executives embark on their narrative and agree that their business case is a favorable one and needs to be addressed. I liked this structure that they propose here for this business case. I think it's something that you should consider when you have to present your ideas about an IT project to a group of people where probably most of them are not IT people. So having a summary at the beginning to give people already an idea of what will be discussed in that specific business case, and then an introduction. Notice that it's not very different to any other sort of argumentative work that we do. Let's say a dissertation sort of follows part of this logic here, right? We have an introduction where we explain why that is important. And then here, the assumptions and rationale for the ideas that are being presented. Then a summary of the project itself, what needs to be done. Notice that the executive summary is not about what needs to be done. It also involves what will be accomplished and so on and so forth. Some financial discussion and analysis of the money that will need to be invested, the benefits and business impacts of the project, description of schedule and milestones, the time that it will take for us to get there, risks and contingency analysis. By the way, this chapter talks a lot about costs and benefits, but we always have to think that costs and benefits are not the whole thing. We always consider costs, benefits, but we have to consider the risks involved. And it's important if we're building a case that we show that we've already taken that into account. Conclusions and recommendations. So I think it's a good, again, I said it's sort of similar in at least the beginning and the end. It's a bit like what we do in a dissertation. Of course, here you don't have the let's say the scientific method necessarily presented in the middle, so you don't have to be too concerned about methodology and things like that. But at least as a structure, you tell story. You start small, you grow things up, and then at the end you settle things down again. They claim here that critical to the business case is the identification of both costs and benefits, both in financial and non-financial terms. And one interesting thing here, and I think that this chapter tries to elucidate that, is that sometimes it's very easy for us to track and to spot costs and benefits. We can be very precise. Other times things become very vague. But even in those cases where things are vague, sometimes at least you know if you're going in the right direction. So this will show up here in the next paragraphs here where they make this differentiation between some categories for the benefits of one of these projects. Sometimes those benefits are financial benefits. And when they are financial, that means that there is a way to express the benefit in financial terms, right? So those are when there's a way to express a benefit in financial terms, it means that you will not have to fight the CFO, the chief financial officer, because he or she will realize that what you're proposing is very tangibly, has very tangible benefits. Other times, the benefit is quantifiable, i.e. there is a way to measure the size or the magnitude of the benefit, but financial benefits are not directly determinable. For example, a firm might expect a 20% increase in customer retention. So, I mean, you have a figure there, right? You can say our idea is that this is going to, we'll be able to keep or to retain 20% more customers than we did in the past. But here, you do not have a way of assessing this benefit in terms of financial benefit. Okay, we'll retain these customers, but does that mean that they will buy more from us? How much more? No, you can't say that. Many times it's difficult to get to turn this quantifiable into financial expected results. Then we also have measurable results. And by measurable here, we mean there is a way to measure the benefit, but it's not necessarily connectable to any organizational outcome. For example, management must ensure alignment with the business strategy. Many organizations collect satisfaction or web engagement data, and that makes it easy, makes it possible to detect improvements. Right? So you measure. There is a way of measuring that, but again, it's not as strong as being able to quantify or to even turn it into financial results. And finally, the authors here claim that there are results that are just observable. They can be detected only by opinion or judgment. That means that they're subjective, intangible, soft, or qualitative. Things seem better, but no measures are available. For example, customers might be expected to be happier or less argumentative. We expect that they'll be happier with this, but and we can, or it's just we observe, but we can't measure. They have a table here on figure 8.6 that gives us some examples of benefits, for example, related to an innovation here, a chat function, and a customer support forum. Right? They think that this will mean fewer returns, meaning less people sending back orders and asking for a refund, and higher sales. They claim that these are financial benefits because they will, of course, those would also have to be related to numbers, right? You would have to say how many fewer returns and how much increase in sales, but that's something that you can measure quickly. Quantifiable, shorter customer wait time. It's going to be verifiable that people will spend less time to get support by means of this chat function and this customer support forum than previously. Measurable, higher customer satisfaction scores, and observable, fewer complaints. And they do the same here. They give examples for another improvement here. Remodeled Facebook page. Now, 5 years later, they should be talking about Instagram, possibly not Facebook any longer. And then they give examples of financial, quantifiable, measurable, and observable benefits as well. And same here for a third situation. Actually, they also claim that IT can be used to innovate. Notice, innovate is effectiveness, do something different. To improve means efficiency, do something that we already did in the past better. Or cessation, stop doing something. Okay. Then they mention the IT portfolio. The IT portfolio is, and make the IT portfolio management, the way we manage our portfolio of IT, depends on understanding that different systems need to be managed differently, and that different systems have different reasons for their existence. Right? These authors here that they claim here, Peter Whale, he's a professor in Australia, and another colleague of his, can't remember where I saw that here, but anyway, they claim that there are 4 different types of systems: transactional systems, infrastructural systems, informational systems, and strategic systems. Of course, each one of these systems feeds with information different people in the organization. Transactional systems are the systems that are used by people in, let's say, in a production line, or those that are directly involved with the operation, that are actually performing the tasks necessary to achieve the products or services that an organization performs. These systems are systems that are used by those people that are actually doing the job. Right? The president of an organization will hardly ever touch a transactional system because he is not involved with the routine operation. Then we have infrastructure systems that are, as the name says, they're infrastructure, they're behind other systems. In fact, I would probably, if I were to list these 4 systems here, I would start with the infrastructure system, because all others depend on the infrastructure system for them to be built, right? So this would be my first system on top here, and then the transactional systems. But those are the ones that provide the foundation of shared IT services that we need to have so that the other systems can happen. Informational systems are the systems that are used mainly by what I would call middle management, those managers that are involved with the actual operation, but they're not concerned. They're concerned with what is happening in the transactional system. So the managers that assess these informational systems also have, through these informational systems, they also have information that is being generated by the transactional systems, right? The transactional systems are collecting and organizing information from the routine of the operation. The informational systems are trying to make sense of that information to show, for example, if the operation is improving its efficiency over time. So let's say informational systems may compare the results obtained in the production line this week with the results that we had last week, because the manager believes that maybe some changes that were made in the process could make things better, and now he or she needs to assess that. So informational systems rely on transactional information systems to provide middle management with information that they use to decide on several routine managerial tasks. Should I hire, or should I determine that people work an extra hour a day so that we can finish producing what sales has already sold? Should we provide people with some additional time for lunch because we let's say we don't have too much work this week, so maybe we can give them make things a little easier or whatever? Should we decide on basically the regular planning of daily and weekly activities? So notice that whoever is working on transactional systems is only thinking about the present, right now. Informational systems allow us to think now and compare it to yesterday, compare it to, let's say, last week, to what we plan for next week. These guys that use these informational systems are making decisions, but they're decisions relating more to the tactical and operational levels of the organization. And then we have strategic systems that are the systems that are used by those who are deciding the future of the organization. Whoever is concerned with strategic systems is not thinking, is not concerned with what's happening right now in the transaction line. So maybe we may have a siren there and no one working because there was the beginning of a fire in the operation line, and the strategic systems are not at all concerned with that because they know that this will be solved in 15 minutes, and maybe tomorrow things will still be a little complicated. Maybe some information systems here will have to take that into account. But for these strategic systems here, they're thinking, for example, that the kind of decisions that they're making is, should we start or build a new plant in another city or in another country? Should we extend our line of products to products that the competition has, but that would require developing new skills and buying new machinery? These are decisions that will take effect in the longer run. And of course, the strategic systems, they are informed by the informational systems, which, as I said before, are informed by the transactional systems, and they all rely on this infrastructure system that exists simply so that the others can exist on top, right? But it's important for us to know that different systems meet the needs of different people with different perspectives. And when we are the IT people that are developing those systems, we have to have that in mind, because it's people that think differently, that have different even notions of urgency, that need data and for their decisions in different time frames. I think somewhere around this part of the text, they also start discussing some different, different kinds of strategy. Sometimes businesses that are more focused on cost, so cost-focused strategy, and other times more focused on agility. So the authors here claim that a different balance between IT investment is needed for a cost focused strategy compared to an agility focused strategy. And in fact, they even had some numbers, which I think they appear much further. Let me see if I find it. Remember that they even had some data to confirm that, but I'm not finding it here. Claiming that can't find it right now, but claiming that sometimes for a more cost-focused strategy probably needs if we think if we think about transactional systems, a cost-focused strategy will probably focus more on the idea of producing more items all the same and everything, and a company that is more focused on agility may need some more flexibility out of their systems. And this may, I remember that there was a table somewhere on this chapter with even some results from Peter Whale's research also, but I'm not being able to find it. Don't worry, maybe it will appear somewhere. Then we have a discussion here about the valuing of IT investments. They talk about several different ways of valuing IT, and most of them are financially related. So it's interesting because finance has been able to provide us with tools to measure projects and to measure investments, but most of them are related to, let's say, to businesses of the Industrial Revolution. Most of them are very good for when we are using very tangible technology, and when we are discussing very tangible results from implementing that technology. And none of that really exists when we're talking about IT. A lot of the benefits that we get are intangible, which make it really difficult to use, for example, techniques such as the payback or discounted cash flow. Discounted cash flow is the net present value, and so on and so forth. So I really expected that they could give us some hints, but I have to admit that I also find it difficult. So again, when I was reading this, I also have a book on information systems in Portuguese. So I'm sure that these guys never read my book. I had never read their book before. But it still seems that although we haven't read what each other have written, we're writing some of the same stuff, right? I have a chapter in my book where I talk about the same measures, and my complaint at the end is they were all very good to help decide on other kind of investments. When we think of digital transformation, many times what we are expecting is simply to keep in the business, right? Other times we do agree that we'll turn our customers happier, but we are unable to tell if the fact that they're happier will result in more cash in our pockets. So it's all very, very difficult. Elida said that in page 189, it mentions the IT portfolio of Peter Weil. Maybe, yeah, that's what I was looking for. But there's some place here where they had, from what I remembered, it was a table in which they showed the little difference between companies that are very cost focused and how they perform their investments, and companies that were more agile focused and how they perform their investments in those kinds of systems: infrastructure, transactional, informational, and strategical systems. So, but don't worry, it will probably appear here somewhere. And they, one of the last ways in which they think that it's another possibility of assessing investment in IT is using the balanced scorecards, which again I have in my book also. And curiously, balanced scorecard was also the solution that I found 20 years ago for that problem of not being able to make any good assessment of IT investment. I thought balance scorecards, which is a model that was developed in, I think it was first published in 1996. So I was doing my master's when these guys were publishing about the balance scorecards, and I was really impressed because at that stage I was also trying to assess the value of IT investments. And these guys, two accountants, they Kaplan and Norton, they said that companies shouldn't be too focused on financial results. In fact, they said most accountants prefer to be precisely wrong than vaguely right. I know that we have an accountant here among us, Danielle. I don't know if she's familiar with Kaplan and Norton's work, but they were, let's say, they were not very traditional accountants, because they were thinking about some sort of accounting that would allow companies to, develop their strategies and also communicate their strategies. In fact, many people say that the balance scorecards is probably a better, I would say, a better tool to communicate strategy than really to formulate strategy. Because basically what the balance scorecards shows, and I do have it here. Here, this is I think this is precisely what, I said 1996, it's actually 1992 that they first proposed this. Well, I started my master's in 96, so this is why it was 4 years after the model. I was really impressed with this. They said, we do have a financial perspective for any project, and then we define our goals and define measures. Again, we have that idea that if we can't measure, then we cannot assess, we cannot manage. But they say, don't get too focused on the financial perspective, because the financial perspective only shows us that we have been successful so far. So the financial perspective shows that we were good in the past, and that maybe we're still good in the present, so we're doing fine, but it doesn't give us a hint about what is going to happen in the future. And then what these authors proposed was that you found other perspectives that gave us a hint of the future. And they said, well, one thing that you can do is you can think of and try to measure what your customers think of you, right? So, of course, if you have happy customers, if they're happy now, there is a good tendency that they will keep buying from you. It's just a tendency, right? And customers many times are not that loyal, but it's better to have customers that are happy than customers that are unhappy in terms of saying where you should be going, right? With respect to this, what they call here this internal perspective, it relates more to, basically how does the company feels about its own processes. Are the processes being improved? So here we're sort of talking about efficiency, right? And maybe in this learning perspective, we're talking about effectiveness. So here we're talking learning perspective is about innovation. But in this case, we're talking about more radical innovation. Maybe the internal perspective here is talking about a more, how would I say, continuous improvement perspective. How are we doing in terms of improving our processes? And they said, and by the way, Kaplan and Norton were not that, how would I say, they were not strong about these four cards here: a card for perspective, a card for internal perspective, a card for learning perspective, and a card for customer perspective. They simply said, don't rely on just one card, right? Have other cards. For example, nowadays, many companies in their balance scorecards have a card for environmental issues or social concerns or whatever, because they believe that they will only be accepted by their customers in the future if they show that they are responsible in terms of sustainability, for example. Okay, so I like the idea. I think this is at least a more flexible way of trying to measure things. And these other perspectives, not the financial perspective, they allow for more. They give more room for other measures that are not financial measures. Remember, those that are measurable, or they are quantifiable, or they are at least observable. Okay. And Norton claims here that we should not start with an emphasis on the metrics. Start with your strategy and use the metrics to make it understandable and measurable. That is, to communicate it to those expected to make it happen and to manage it. Notice that the authors themselves, David Norton is one of the authors of the Talent Scorecards. They already claimed that their tool was a good tool. After you had the strategy, the Talent Scorecards could be very good to communicate that strategy internally to employees, but also externally to customers and other people. Then they talk a bit about dashboards. It's almost 9:30. Well, we'll stop at 9:30, have some 15-minute break, and then come back. I think dashboards, we don't need to get too deep into it. Then we have, maybe this is a good time for us to have a short break, because then we will discuss about who pays for what one gets from IT. Basically, I want to start, when we come back, I want to start from here. Is this it? No, this is still the scorecards, the dashboards. Let's use some of the IT. Yeah, I want to start right when we come back. I will start right from this funding methods to the IT projects. I think we're going to be in a rush, but hopefully we'll even be able to discuss quickly the case of Air France and KLM. Okay, so maybe let's have a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 9:35, and then in 25 minutes we'll try to wrap things up. Okay. Here on page 196, they start discussing the funding methods of IT. Let's say IT investments, right? And again, this was something else that when before I started thinking of the chapter, I thought what would be here, and this is something that I remember that I also considered discussing in my own book, and I never wrote this specific session, but this is a concern that we have, because depending on how you charge those who use the technology, you will get different kinds of use. For example, here they claim that you can have 3 different ways of funding IT projects. One of them would be the corporate budgets. Let's say the president of the organization says, well, this is going to be so important for us in the future that the company will pay for it, and we hope that the different departments start using it. And in fact, as the corporation, the company does the expenditure, at the beginning, nobody will have to concern about the costs, right? The costs are going to be corporate. The corporation will handle them. Another way of doing it is allocating to the cost to different departments based, for example, on the number of people in the departments, some sort of measurement that is not necessarily related to the actual use that is made of the technological means. And a third way of charging it is by the actual use. Whoever used pays for it. Which one of these 3 methods is fairer? Probably you would say, well, I prefer to be charged by the use. Right? The more I use, the more I pay. Maybe this is the fairer way of charging people for use. We just check how much we as the company spend on it, and then we split. If the departments that use a specific technology the most, they have to cope with those costs. The problem with doing that is that nobody ever knows exactly how much they will pay, right? Because each month, it's almost like if we had a meter, and at the end of the month, the IT department, we're going to tell, okay, you spend more this month, so you pay more. So in that sense, the allocation way of charging, although it's not as fair in terms of someone may be using more than you are, but depending on the original allocation, you may be paying more. And of course, at the end of a specific term there, you can renegotiate that and change. But for now, it's going to be according to the allocation. The advantage here is that you're always going to pay the same amount for the period for which that allocation has been determined. And the corporate budget maybe it has the advantage that nobody's paying. I mean, of course, the company is paying, but no department is having to fight for paying more or less. No department is paying. But because nobody's paying, it's difficult to know if people are valuing it. I mean, we don't value what we don't pay for, right? For example, I value going to my Pilates classes because they pay for it. If I don't pay for it, if I could do it in, let's say, in the club or in a place where I don't have to pay extra, I don't do it because I don't have that feeling that I have already paid. So corporate budget, although it may seem an interesting way to, it's probably the easiest way to get everyone happy about, because basically you just have to have the president of the company happy, right? If he says yes, I'll be paying, nobody else has to concern. But the problem is that people then use it in an irresponsible way simply because they are not paid. So, but anyway, it's important for us to think that technology doesn't come at no cost. We do have costs involved, and that those costs need to be related to the value that it generates, and of course it also needs to take into account who's paying for that cost, right? So I think this chart here is interesting because it allows us to reflect a bit on that. I don't know how technology is charged in your organizations. I think that there's probably different ways of doing it, and different technologies are charged different ways, right? When it is strategically important to foster a specific technology, maybe the upper management decides to use corporate budgets, at least at the beginning. Allocation is simpler. Chargeback is probably the most, let's say, the fairest way of having. But we can never have all the advantages each one of them has, as shown here in this table. Why do it and why not do it, right? There is pros and cons in each one of these alternatives. All right. Here, when they discuss the funding IT resources, they claim here that this distribution of costs is used so that managers can understand the costs associated with running their organizations, or for tax reasons, when the costs associated with each business must be paid for by the appropriate business unit. So this is to decide, again, if we're using chargeback, allocation, or corporate budgeting. Corporate budgeting, and in this case here, we're talking about the chargeback and the allocation methods. Corporate budgeting, on the other hand, is a completely different funding method in which IT costs are not linked directly with any specific user or business unit. Costs are recovered using the corporate coffers, so it's the corporation that deals with that. Right, I think here we have the several, the discussion of the next few pages of these three models: chargeback, allocation, and corporate budget. Yeah, we also have here some discussion of activity-based costing, which is another way of trying to make sure that costs are incorporated by the activities that generate them. So we have direct costs as being those that can be clearly linked to any particular process or product, such as the components used to manufacture the product and the assembler wages for the time spent building the product. And indirect costs being the overhead costs, which include everything from the electric bill, the salary of the administrative managers, and the expenses of administrative function, to the wages of those who are basically administrators, that they're not directly involved in producing. The activity-based costing gets even these indirect costs and makes sure that they are split accordingly, so that we know how much each activity that happens in an organization costs, right? It's let's say it's a good way of making sure that we are generating more value than cost, because if we don't do this, there are good chances that some activities in an organization are simply, bringing more costs than value and should be eliminated, but we don't notice. So this is again a way of trying to discuss here how to think of the budgeting of projects involving IT, and also because it's difficult because of those intangible costs and things that are not easy to measure. And finally, one last form of doing that is discussing the total cost of ownership. This was actually a concept that was developed by the Gartner Group still in the 1990s. And in fact, in a time where people were discussing the advantages of having a proprietary technology, Microsoft, or open software. And of course, Microsoft claimed that the total cost of ownership of using open source was higher than paying for Microsoft. They claimed that there were a lot of hidden costs in adopting open source technology. Well, I never had that same understanding as Microsoft, although I understand the concept. Basically, what they claimed that if you decided to use open source, you would not pay for the software itself, but then you would pay by means of hidden costs of choosing the alternative technology. For example, even probably paying more for any support that you needed because less people knew how to deal with their open source. But anyway, regardless of if Microsoft was right or wrong with the total cost of ownership, and in fact, when the Gartner Group started using this was to show that even the cost of having a PC, a personal computer, is not simply the cost of the hardware plus the software and maybe the training. For example, right here where I have my notebook on top of a simple desk, but it is a desk. So if I want to think of the total cost of my setting here, to use this computer, I need a desk below it. So the desk is part of the total cost of ownership, and sometimes we forget about it. I also need a connection to the internet that I have to pay regardless of using it or not. Right? I also need to consider that this computer has a life cycle of maybe 4 or 5 years. So each month that I use it has a specific cost related to the fact that after 5 years, I'll have to buy another computer, and so on and so forth. So this is the total cost of ownership tries to look for these hidden costs and bring them to light so that you have a clear idea of the costs involved in any technology investment or any technology decision that we make. I think this was it, and it's good because we still have some 10 minutes to discuss the case. Again, the main reason I want to quickly at least go through these cases with you is, of course, you have this task of producing a case yourselves. During the week, some of you asked me about how this will happen. My idea was that you work in pairs if you wish, and you could even try and use our WhatsApp group there to tell people I'm thinking about dealing with this company or whatever. Anyone else want to volunteer? And basically volunteering means trying to help find sources that you can use to obtain the information that you need, and also writing the case, basically writing the story and narrowing the story down so that you can at the end have some questions. For example, in this case here, what is likely to have led to increased trust for the IT organization in the KLM Air France case here? They changed CIOs, right? And well, in fact, I'm sort of probably I'm already answering, right? What led to increased trust? In this case, they decided on a CIO that was not from the computer department at the beginning. He was operations. He was someone who came from the actual, running the business of the air company business. And I do believe that this was probably something that, in this case, was important, bringing someone with the perspective of the use of IT that was not too technical related to IT itself, right? They wanted the value for the business, thinking IT in which ways IT could make the business more valuable. What might explain an item that is similarly quite unrelated to IT? Cost per kilometer flown decreased as a result of the new CIO structure. Did anyone get information from the text here that allows us to answer this question? Cost per kilometer flown. How do you think that this cost went down based on the new CIO structure? What I remember here is them saying that they gave tablets to most of their employees, and by using those tablets, they reduced at the same time they reduced cost, but increased sales of additional items in flights and so on and so forth. I don't know if this is what they're thinking of here, but because that could only reduce the cost per kilometer flown if they're considering that the fact that made them sell more, but at the same time it allowed them to have less staff, right? But I don't know if this is actually, does anyone have a better answer? I'm not sure if this was because here they're talking about a result of the new CIO structure. Any ideas? Guys, for the next few classes, try to, when we have an indication of one of those study cases, try to consider the questions that they included at the end and see if they are answerable with the information that we have from the case, because that's what we want, right? We want that the cases either directly allows us to answer that, or at least it allows us to extrapolate in the sense of, although the answer doesn't need to be directly in the one-page case, at least having read what we read in the chapter, discussing that topic, and with that information, it should give us the possibility of answering. I'm not sure here about this, when they say here result of the new CIO structure, because it's even a little strange here talking about a CIO structure, because it's not the CIO structure, right? The structure of the information technology department, the CIO is a person, right? So it's,
I think,
Elida, do you have an idea there?
I think that maybe for what I
hear you.
saw, I think that
You're talking, but we have a problem with your mic.
Now it's better. I tried to remove the phone. Can you hear me now?
No, can't hear you.
Let me see what's wrong.
Maybe right now. Oh, yeah, Pedro can hear you. So
Yeah, I can hear.
is it me? I'm the only one who can't hear. Let me check if.
I can hear also.
It's sending the audio to my mic. I think now it will work.
So I think that they are talking about if you use the tablets, they make reducement of employers, and that's a cost that's very significant for each flight. And also I think that they say here on the last paragraph, or about the last paragraph, that out of that they also make an economy on the paper and a lot of stuffs that were used before, and now with the new it's not CIO, but the new digital technology,
Infrastructure.
they really make a great profit of it.
Yeah, so at the same time, they allow they build more value because they allow the people to have access to different services through in a more convenient way, and at the same time that reduce the number of people. So probably this is why they think that
the flight reduce it, because at first when I saw reducing the value for each flight, for me was okay, but what about the airplane or the gas that they use or something like this? I was thinking about like the structure of the airplane and the flight itself, but I think it's not like this.
No, it's not like this. Remember the ABC costing. The ABC costing says all the costs that you have for the organization will have to split among those activities that aggregate value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what aggregates value there is actually the things, the situations in which you sell something to the customers. It's either you're selling them a ticket to go from Paris to New York, or you're selling them, say, an improved meal, and they're saying instead of eating the pasta or chicken, someone wants something different, and they can easily write down and organize so that the person gets a special meal, and of course gets a special meal, but pays more for that than it costs for the company, because otherwise it only makes their life more complex, right?
Yeah, and nowadays I see that like the Wi-Fi, it's also something that is very common nowadays. It's not mentioned on that text, but it's also a strategy that the airplanes enterprise.
Maybe someone comes there and asks, "Well, I would like to have Wi-Fi." They can very quickly, they're from their tablets. Okay, pay $50 here and
Yeah.
I'm worried and whatever. Okay, I just realized that I probably didn't have any feedback from you during the whole class. So I don't know if anyone had asked me anything during the class before. I noticed something in the chat, but I was not listening. Now I was not listening before. You seemed quieter than usual, but sorry if anyone had asked something. I simply, if I ignored, was simply because I was not, for whatever reason.
It comments there, the text, climate change is more efficient. I think it provides better benefits also, reducing costs.
Yes. Right. And what else? Let's quickly see here. What business IT maturity level did KLM appear to exhibit in 2000 and in 2017? So basically back there in 2000, I would claim that it was probably level 1, right? It was only, they were there, IT was there to solve problems when demanded. And in 2017, they had a structure in which they even brought someone from a different area to think in which ways IT could improve the value of the business. So I would claim that probably level 3, right? They're sort of course, we can argue how strong is this transformation of this digital transformation of the business with the information that we have there, but they're going towards that. Okay? So the idea here with this, again, with the questions that you will generate also is try to make sure that you have questions that relate to the specific chapter you chose to discuss. So again, you're going to be thinking of a company, you're going to write the case, but the case will have to be related to one of the chapters of the book, right? You choose either, I want to discuss strategy, so it's going to be maybe chapter 1 or 2, or if it's going to be security, it's going to be chapter 7. We're going to discuss whatever it is, try to fit it into the discussion of a specific chapter or specific concepts of the course, right? This is what I want you to try and do. And then, guys, what we have for the 28th of May is chapter, remember that we have already read chapters 9 and 9. We have already read chapter 9. We will do chapter 11. Now, I don't remember why I messed up here, why we're doing 11 before 10. I had some reason why not, but maybe it was still something trying to relate to what they were doing there in the United States. But we'll go to chapter 11 for next week, and then we come to chapter 10. We have already done chapter 9. And then but for next week, chapter 11, managing IT projects. Okay, so I don't know if you have any questions for today. No, I think this is one of the main challenges that we have until today is this assessing and measuring the value and deciding who pays for it and how one pays for benefits that many times are intangible. So this is definitely, we took 300 years to develop most of the tools for the Industrial Revolution. I hope we don't need another 300 years to develop tools to well assess IT, but it's understandable that we still lack and that we still have to rely on things like, even techniques like that were built for the Industrial Revolution, or if not, something like the balance scorecards that is very loose in the sense that, we measure the finance with those very good tools, and then we just check with respect to the other perspectives if we are going in the right direction, right? So for some of the other cards, many times we only have observations, observable results, or while for the financial metrics, we spot precisely where we're going. Right. Okay, so see you in a week time. If anyone has any other thoughts or ideas that you want to share with respect to the study cases, you just post them directly in our WhatsApp group, because probably if anyone has a doubt, it's going to be someone else's doubt, and I prefer that we discuss it there with everyone seeing. All right. Okay, so see you in a week time, guys. Bye.